Hello everyone and welcome back to round 2 action. This is back 9 action from the 2023 BC Open presented by Discmania. As always, the Canadian Disc Golf Tour is brought to you by our patrons at Park Pro, patreon.com/parkpro. Sign up today. And of course by PDGA Canada. We're back at Raptors. The sun is setting in the background on this, but the sun is also setting on our round 2 action here. So.
And our time at Raptors Knoll. This is the final 9 we'll be playing here. And like I said before, probably my favorite 9 in the lower mainland.
Well, and it's a lot of people's favorite, as you can see from the 4.8 overall rating on UDisc. This is a very popular course in BC, so.
Absolutely. One of the most popular.
So we take a look at our round 2 scoreboards here. Kirby and Casey both at -7 on the round. Carter and Scott falling behind a little bit, -3 and -4. So we'll see if they can turn it around. And Kirby sitting at the top of the leaderboard at -17, Casey -16, Carter -14, and Scott at -13. So still a lot of good disc golf to be played. We obviously have another round after this one as well, so it's certainly not over for these guys.
Oh, absolutely not. And like I said about this 9, there will be a lot of action because there's some tight woods holes that create some big numbers.
Yeah, speaking of tight holes, there's that tight 3 triple Mando. Hole 10, par 3, 328 feet. This one can create a bit of a challenge with that Mando at the start. So.
Yeah, absolutely. In this pin position, you'll see most people throw a straight putter or mid-range flex shot. The other pin position to the right, you see a lot of sidearm, but this one typically will be thrown backhand as Casey lines up his forehand specialist, making me sound silly. Keeping it straight that long and getting it to settle down by the basket without fading out is the big challenge here. Casey's hoping this comes back in, and it does perfectly.
Yep, that's a great shot, and Casey showing why this hole is rated as the 3rd easiest hole on the course for the day.
I don't see a lot of missed Mandos happening, but it does take away some of the cheesy hyzers and other things like that.
Kirby, which is like that was a really pretty throw.
Yeah, that's that straight putter I'm talking about. It says 328, which is a bit of a rip for a putter, but it is quite downhill. You're probably losing 15 feet in elevation.
Mm-hmm. Here we see, Scott burning it off to the left.
Yeah, looks like he was going for that Casey flex shape, but...
Yeah, and just lands it behind that big tree there, so...
Just pulled a little too much.
You see Carter taking the backhand line over top of the trees.
Yeah, that's...
Just missing them. And he'll have a decent look for his birdie there.
Yeah, a little further than he wanted. I think he was hoping to get more flex back than that. You can see it coming out of his hand over the tree, but just not making it far enough or back in time.
A big shout out for Tezuka for supporting this tournament and supporting Canadian disc golf as well.
Yeah, Zuka came up big. I think what they did was they sponsored the Ace Pod.
Oh, wow.
And you got a Zuka cart for your Ace because they knew there'd be multiple, and instead of splitting $1,000 10 ways, they just said, let's give the first 10 or so guys a Zuka cart.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, there's going to be multiple when you have over 600 people in the tournament. So we look at Carter, just hitting band on that one.
Said the wind is swirling a little bit. Carter's looking to see an excuse for his miss, but I think that one was just a little bit high.
Yeah. So we see Scott cleaning up his par putt.
Yeah, not the tee shot he wanted, but a good recovery and a good putt. That rock does kind of get in your head because it sits at the top of the band eye level.
Yeah.
Or sorry, top of the cage. Eye level.
Now, if you haven't seen the front 9 action, I definitely recommend going back because we saw Kirby and Casey here making a little bit of a push on Scott and Carter as they all came in tied at the top. Casey was down by a stroke. But now we see Kirby and Casey at the top of the leaderboard, and they're continuing that momentum into the back 9 here. As you watch Carter clean up his par. Tell he's a little bit frustrated from missing his birdie putt there, but hopefully he can shake it off.
Dead center for Kirby. Nice confident putt there.
Yeah. Like you said, those rocks can play in your head, but obviously Kirby making no mistake on that one. Well, 11 par 4, 530 feet. We have OB on the right-hand side. Everything the drone is flying over right now is OB. As we start to get into the inbounds play, there is a hazard on the left-hand side here. You can tell by the way it is.
Yes, the wood chips there are the hazard. There's OB left and right. A lot of these players will be throwing a flat shot with a stable disc, taking off as much as they can before coming back in the safe area, and then navigating this hyzer shape over the bridge and OB line to the green. The trees do provide a bit of a low canopy, challenging longer putts, so you're going to want to stick it nice and close.
Yeah, and this green gets tight with that OB in behind it as well on the left-hand side, so you're really trying to stick a shot either long or short.
Yes, the hazard area gets narrower as it goes further, so definitely distance does make this one a little bit easier. Casey tight to the left OB line, but in that safe zone long of the hazard that we were just talking about.
Yeah, and he should have a nice backhand hyzer approach into the green. So here's Kirby. He's playing with the OB on this one.
This is dangerous because you may have never, ever came in bounds, which means that shot will be taken from the red pad, which is the drop zone on this hole.
See if Scott can make the correction, make the wind read. Did mention it's swirling a little bit.
Scott's looks perfect here.
And that's a great... Oh, it was a great shot. Unfortunately, just squeaking out of bounds.
Yeah, I expected he'd get a bit of a skip to the left into the perfect position, but it catches edge and rolls out. That's very unfortunate.
Here's Carter.
Carter maybe looking a bit safer, a little further left.
Similar play to Casey's as well, so.
Just cuts off a bit of angle for the hyzer in, but as good a spot as any pro player is going to throw this.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at Kirby from the drop zone. Still a lot to chew off here. So
oh no, this might be OB left again.
Hopefully he can get lucky with those trees there, and unfortunately does not.
That's the challenge of this OB, is the loss in distance. Scott's is unfortunate to take the stroke, but he hasn't really changed his distance or position at all.
Unfortunate miscue from Casey there.
And speaking of, he'll be moving back out of putting range because that never swung in.
That is unfortunate.
Carter doing the same thing?
And doing the same thing. Exact same thing. That is a couple of misplays there. I don't know if that was the miss on the wind read or what, but
I really think that's the angle. It doesn't quite show it as well on camera, but you try and push it wide to keep that first tree that you're seeing in this angle out of play entirely, and sometimes you just leave it a bit wide. Scott smartly throwing under with the sidearm, taking all of that out of play.
As you mentioned, here's Casey's from distance.
I'm going to go for a jump putt of some kind here, but we'll see how competitive he can make it from this distance. And fairly competitive.
That was a good bid there. And he'll have no problem cleaning that one up. And we'll see if Carter can do the same thing. These guys are going to take these from pretty much the same spot as kind of made the exact same errors.
Yeah, the only error you can make here would probably be that branch and let that disc roll into a position for an awkward putt. All putts left here usually have to happen from a knee. Carter's staying close. He'll tap that one in. Kirby must have been tight to that left side OB line, showing off how aggressively this chokes up and taking no second thought with the low canopy, just pitching up. Scott knocks in his par.
Mm-hmm. Casey with the bogey. I'm gonna watch as Kirby puts in the double bogey and Carter with his bogey. So unfortunate for Scott to go out of bounds off the drive, but he's the only one that comes out of it with the par. So he's pretty happy to escape with that.
They really showed the teeth that this hole can have.
Yeah.
Unfortunate to see them do it, but tells you all the different ways this hole tests you off the tee, on the approach, on the putt.
All right, hole 12. We are coming into a challenging hole. It's the second hardest hole on the course for the day. Par 3, 258 feet. There's just a lot of trees in your way on this one.
Absolutely. Most guys, I think, will try and throw a sidearm flex to the shape that the drone is going. But I do think a lot of these guys are starting to learn that this hole should be played for par because of how tight and how punishing it is. Saw Carter with the backhand layup in the previous round that worked out very well for him. But we also saw Luke on the last round really show off the teeth that this hole can have. Bad kicks here can spell bogey at best.
Yeah. An ideal shot lands just at the bottom of the mound and you know, at least gives you a shot at the birdie.
Yeah, Scott showing off that sidearm we were talking about, and he's done it perfectly.
It's a great shot, just really well played. Nice and stable at the end and crashes that mound that we're talking about.
Yeah, the kick back off the steps won't be his favorite, but all the drama of the hole is gone. Casey pulling his a little bit too tight, same line as Scott, but gets away with it as that was not a bad kick, leaving him in the center of the fairway.
There's that interesting play from Carter. He's going overhand. And the reason it's interesting is just because of that. There's just so many trees and you know, you're throwing an overhand shot, but your window is so low.
I think he's doing it because he can keep his eyes on the target and, you know, confidently hit the gap. Obviously, it didn't work out for him. And I'm sure that thumber shape, once it pans and gets upside down, he's maybe looking for that skip off the plate back to the right. Well,
especially because Carter, you know, we know he's got the power that, you know, even with a lower shot like that, he can get it to where he needs it to go.
Absolutely.
We watch Casey put this one. Unfortunately, gets the kick and roll down the hill, but
he rolled from 5 feet to 12 feet.
Yeah, he should have a good look for par.
See what Carter has here. Again, in the fairway, so not a huge deal. And really well thrown.
Nice and high and just lands it really nicely beside the basket. See what Kirby can come up with here. Kind of similar. He's still going to have that tree in the way, but it's going to be close enough, I think. Scott doing a little scoping, trying to decide if he should run it or not. Unfortunate to land exactly where he did because of that reason. That tree right there. Unfortunate. Here's Casey making good on his par putt.
Yeah, I almost, with the glare from the light, thought that came out the backside
yeah.
for him. But well, good par. And par on this hole is great. I think a lot of players even negate the birdie off the tee and choose to play for par.
Yep. We mentioned that this was the second hardest hole on the course for the day. We had a total of 7 birdies, I believe. 8 birdies. Total of 8 birdies on the day, making this, challenging one. Lead card, escaping with pars, which is, as you mentioned, that's kind of the play. And it's definitely a bonus birdie.
I have heard that the course, or this hole, was getting some more, that basket going to be pushed back even further, but not up on the hill to the right, more of a straight shot, navigating that complex wooded fairway.
And as we take a look at our scoreboard here, Casey and Kirby still at the top, -16. Chris pushing his way into third at -14. Scott and Carter, -13. Trevor, -12. Connell, -11. And then Nicholas, Chris, and Isaac, all at -10. So,
yeah, Nick Culver, 10 down, 12 down through the round. Hot round in the clubhouse so far.
That's a great round.
Solving some of his problems from yesterday.
Yeah. Hole 13, par 5, the longest hole on the course at 908 feet. This one's interesting. We got a lot of trees to contend with on the left-hand side, and we got Obi on the right, making this drive a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this yesterday, how the trees are in a bit of an awkward stage of their growth. They're not so low that they're easy to throw over, and they're not so high that there's room to throw under the canopy. Once you navigate that corner, you do have to come down to the far pin position, tucked in the shade of the trees there. It does come into play occasionally. The OB tapers off towards the basket, so a shot left too far right can also find OB on your third shot.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about this hole is off the drive, you really want to push it kind of on the right-hand side of the fairway to cut the corner as much as you can. And so that's why we see, Scott playing this forehand. Maybe didn't get quite the distance that he wanted to, but trying to at least make his second shot, that placement shot. Yeah.
Scott's an absolute veteran. I'm sure he's throwing there as some part of a game plan. He's got enough backhand power that he could have thrown the big turnover around the corner, but it appears him and Casey have the same idea, and they care more about where their feet go than where their disc goes.
See Kirby with the more common backhand play, trying to bite off distance, and also a common landing spot is in amongst those trees, and that can present its own challenge on that second shot.
Yes, exactly. Getting, like I said, underneath those trees from there is very tough, and when you're too close to them, there is no hope of going over.
So you see Carter, he's got the arm. He's challenging that Mando.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention is the Mando on the corner, and that one would be awfully close to it. Otherwise, disc coming out to a very, very good landing zone for someone throwing that turnover shape.
Yeah, and it looks like he's stayed in bounds as well, so.
And this must be what it is. If you throw far enough back, you have an easier time getting up and over these trees.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great shot from Casey. Giving himself you're going to have a longer third shot into the green, but giving yourself a good chance at it.
Yeah, being up on the hill really helps you carry that distance and not have to contend with the trees as much. So something on the hillside where you have good footing is great. Scott, low and close to the OB, might be a little bit trickier for him from there.
Yeah, especially when you take those trees into account. If those guys get in your way, then, you're looking at a par.
Yeah, you're playing some kind of long scramble angle drive. Very, very challenging.
Kirby also ending up in a similar spot, but I don't think he'll have those trees to contend with, so he's just going to have a lot to chew off. As we see Carter, this is where Carter's ended up, and he just mashed this one.
Yeah, this is as good a spot as you can be in, and staying up that high after your second shot for the other guys is also important, because you can see how much fairway it gives you to play with. He can't be thinking of getting there in two, can he?
He's thinking about getting in there in two. But unfortunately, this one hangs out to the right a little bit longer than what he'd like. Does it skip in bounds, though, on the backside? And unfortunately, it doesn't.
He just needed a little bit of height, and that could have been a magical shot if it came back in.
So good. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to say he wasted that amazing drive, but when you go OB off of something like that, just, yeah, it's unfortunate. See Casey put this one inside the circle and playing this one to like a storybook. He's just done so well. Exactly
executing his game plan.
Kirby also putting this one not to Casey. Yeah, not to outdo Casey, but it's a great shot.
Especially being so tight to that bush. Scott got a lot better lie than I expected.
Yep. And on nice flat ground as well.
Wow.
Those are that's three great upshots.
It's so tough to tell. Yeah.
They're talking about where Carter actually went out of bounds and where he should take his lie from.
I would say.
Now throwing 4 for Carter. He's going to give it a chance.
Doesn't a little bit high, but should be able to clean that one up. So we watch Scott put in his birdie with no issues. Likely see Casey and Kirby do the same thing.
Yeah, it's all about executing your game plan. As we see here, that Carter's drive being almost perfect, and that second shot maybe just a bit greedy, making the wheels fall off a little bit.
Well, and that's interesting that you bring that up because, if it was his game plan to land that close, does a better shot off your drive change your game plan as you go in? If you know what I mean, like he bit off quite a bit, and so does that change it? Like you're bringing in an extra stroke possibly, Is there an advantage to sticking to that game plan of going for the birdie or you know, like you see with Carter?
I think it's all about throwing the shots that you've practiced, and I'm not sure that was one that he had. I see that the opportunity was right in front of him, and I'm not sure I'd be strong enough not to take it myself. I definitely wouldn't be strong enough not to take it myself.
Yeah. As we go into hole 14 here, par 3, 230 feet. This one is short but a tricky one with the island green here.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that played the wide shots, the wide sidearm and the wide hyzer, often not actually making the green, either leaving it too wide on the hyzer, catches you before you make it in, and the sidearm sometimes skipping off. Scott here playing very safe and playing it very well. I think he was scared he yanked it, but he played it really well.
Yeah.
The other play is if you're afraid of missing, which you should be, because that basket is deceptively close to the front edge of the OB line. You can also just throw one into the hillside behind, and it is a very, very, very useful play to not take that accidental bogey.
Yeah, and Casey with that long forehand, the safe play, I'd say, and give himself a chance.
It is interesting because I like this hole, that the longer you go past the basket, the safer it is, but the more dangerous it makes the putt.
And Kirby taking that dangerous backhand putt or backhand line and just catching branch, but just managed to squeak over the rim.
Carter's going to go grenade here. We saw a couple grenades in round one. Lets you throw it. Wow, That was very short.
Yes, that is unfortunate. Looks like he might have bounced from the top and unfortunately bounced backwards.
Now we're seeing what this hole does to your game. It really makes this hole a birdie or bogey hole, and now Carter, unfortunately, will be looking at bogey at best.
You can tell you see the disappointment on his face after that one.
Casey has a bit of a scary putt too, because an air ball here could spell OB.
He's taking the disc golf gods as that one just managed to flutter in. So,
yep, that's, you know, maybe also just like I said, because of that danger behind, leaving it a little bit short, having to bounce it off the rim. Scott, though, all confidence, high, strong, center chains.
Yeah, it's a great putt stroke from Scott there. So he puts in his birdie and see Kirby do the same. So well played by those three guys. Unfortunately, Carter putting in the bogey.
Yeah, we have two battles going on here. It was the Kirby Casey and the Scott Carter battle. We just saw the second of which get broken wide open here.
Take another look at Scott's drive, and
he thinks he pulled it, but he played it really well.
Just skips right up top. That's a beautiful, beautiful stroke from Scott. So we take a look at hole 15, par 4, 498 feet. This is a challenging hole. As we mentioned, if you watch the coverage from yesterday, playing from the blues today.
Yeah, absolutely. A big change. I think this hole from the Golds is the best hole on the course. You have to land here where you see this cement wall, just over it, breaking right even better to give you a straight shot up the hill. The hillside itself is hazard, and there's OB left, right of both the hazard and the larger landing zone above. You'll see from this blue tee a lot of sidearm mid-ranges trying to scoot up as tight as you can to that hazard line. Short shots will also try and navigate the locals route tight to the Mando. One of the hardest holes on the course in any conditions.
Yeah, and I mean, pushing it up to the blue pads, there's still, the challenge is all still there. It's all about this placement shot off your drive, just making it a touch easier. But if you still miss it, you miss it. And I think that's why this hole is still playing as the third hardest hole on the day.
Scott in a pretty good position there. You'll see people happy enough with that, and anything closer is just bonus. You really just want to give yourself some kind of access to the fairway to go up the hill on your second.
Take a look at Casey here. His little moo hat gets in the way of the shot, but
bit heavy on distance and flex, but again, not the worst spot you can be.
Let's take a look at Kirby. Lining up that forehand. And almost squeezes in between those trees, but unfortunately gets the kick off to the left. Carter opting for that overhand again. Hit something up there, but
he's in good position. You're a bit further from the OB line and further from the basket as a whole, but you've got good run up to make that attack happen.
yeah, nice flat ground that he landed on. So we take a look at the Luft discs from Kirby here. It's not often you see a lot of Luft sponsored players, but
Kirby gonna just lay up and try and land where he intended to off the first shot.
yeah,
And he does so very well.
does a great job of that, and nice flat landing area like we mentioned earlier too.
Casey going for it. It's a big driver in his hand.
Can he get it though?
Heiser all the way.
Catches some branches.
Stop
and
rolling.
an unfortunate roll back as well.
This hole does produce some gargantuan rollaways off those trees.
Yeah, once it doesn't look like a big slope on camera, but it starts off pretty easy and then it gets steeper and steeper. So once that discs if it gets up on edge, it could just keep going.
Yeah, you can get a 250-foot rollaway.
So we watch Carter putting it pretty close, but still have a tough putt ahead of him.
A destroyer here from Scott. He leans on those when he's trying to throw big shots. This has got some flex on it, trying to get it all the way up there.
And that's a great shot from Scott.
Yeah.
If you're wondering why he's throwing destroyers, because Clash is kind of unique. They like their players to throw whatever disc they like. So Scott has that luxury of kind of throwing whatever he wants, and the idea is that they want to be able to make discs that you want, and if you're missing a disc, then they'll try to fill that gap for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he throws a ton of his sponsor plastic, but maybe just a little bit of familiarity with those destroyers going back to his inner phase.
Let's take a look at Kirby's upshot and puts that under the basket.
Casey off the band would have been one of the rare birdies. This low canopy just very, very difficult.
Carter there tries to power his way through, but I think the height of the basket was just a little bit too much for him. As we see Scott, he's going to want that one back.
So flat.
As you can tell, he's not happy with it either.
Yeah, Scott not scared to tell you how he feels about his play.
See our lead card showcasing how difficult this one is with a bogey in 3 pars. So
also probably scoring like a half stroke better than most groups that played it.
But
unfortunately not getting the rare birdie.
Yeah, let's take a look at our scoreboard through 15. Casey and Kirby still on top. Chris and Scott at -15. Trevor and Carter -13. Colin, Bryant at -11. And then Nicholas, Chris, and Isaac all at -10. So still tight at the top, but those top guys are starting to pull away.
Yeah, our leader's creating a bit of separation here. Just so consistent, not dropping too many strokes unnecessarily.
Hole 16, par 3, 362 feet. This is one of the more gettable holes, I'd say, on the course.
Yeah, this is just one of those pushing hyzers. You don't want to throw something too stable where it comes out early or too understable where it comes out to the right. The trees themselves are enough to be a challenge, but there is also OB on both sides. You'll see a lot of guys doing that slight sit-up hyzer that keeps pushing, trying to get under this last tree to the basket.
Yeah, and it's a great hole that follows up a nice challenging hole because it's kind of one that gets you back on track.
Yeah, you need some room to breathe after 15 for sure, and this gives it to you.
See Scott take the tee pad. The big hyzer.
Scott's gone higher and wider than most players will play this, so he can play a more overstable disc.
Unfortunately, kicking off those more dead trees at the start there, so
He might have been expecting even more distance to come in behind those guys with that type of shape. Winds are swirling a bit, making it a little harder to tell exactly what's going to happen out there.
here's Casey. A little bit lower than Scott, but kind of a similar spot. Maybe a little bit more distance, but kind of a funky landing area.
That is a common place to land for a lot of players that don't quite get what they need on their disc.
Here's Carter.
I can't see the angle because of the height, but that could be one of those too high challenging. No, it is not. That is
It's a great shot.
pretty good shot.
So it looks like Carter made the correction off both Casey and Scott, putting the right amount of height and highs around that one.
Kirby with the fashion head, wearing his hat way up there.
I was going to mention something about that.
See if that gives him the power.
Making a statement.
And apparently it does. 'Cause
does.
That is the closest we've seen out of our group here.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty hot, so it's sometimes nice to get the air underneath your hat.
Yes, I will say that these were the longest tournament rounds of disc golf any of us had ever played, averaging about 5.5 hours here at Raptors Knoll in the hottest week of the year in the lower mainland.
Scott trying to drop that one in. It's unfortunate. Looking up at the tree that his disc hit in disgust. Casey kind of have to contend with that pole and maybe not quite getting the follow through that he would have liked.
Yeah, you can see him have to short arm it so he doesn't whack his wrist on that pipe or the stick beside it.
Carter making that one look good. He's maybe on the left-hand side a little bit, but it's nice to see one drop for him.
Yeah. In the first round and a couple times today, he's made some very, very good putts. But you can see with the body language that he wished he had a couple more throughout his round.
Kirby trying to keep the spirits high.
Yep.
Keeping his spirits high with that birdie. Casey will have his par drop. That brings Casey and Kirby into a tie at -18.
Yeah, speaking of the heat and the length of the round, it is very impressive that these guys have kept focused this long. I know some guys are drinking a full gallon of water throughout their round. Sunscreen, shade, always hiding. It's very, very hard to stay so focused in those types of conditions. It's not so much about what the disc is doing, but what your head and your body are doing.
Yeah, as we take that into hole 17, par 4, 714 feet. Off the drive, this one kind of turns into a long drive competition. Just try to get it out as far as you can and keep it straight and in the center of the fairway here.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that you keep it inbounds and in a place where you've got enough footing and good angles to approach the green is the name of the game here. You don't need to be part of a distance contest to birdie this hole because it is not terribly far for a par 4. The basket here protected by some trees all around, but a good tee shot lets you get into that green without too many headaches.
Yeah, this is really it kind of turns in from a wide open drive into a tight and challenging green. So
Carter going the hyzer shape he did last round again. It worked out pretty good for him. Like I said, you don't need that much distance to get the birdie, so he's just making sure he sticks it in bounds.
That one may be closer than he would have liked.
Definitely closer than he would have liked, and definitely closer than he was in the first round.
Yeah. So we should watch Kirby go straight up the gut.
That's a little scary, but not too bad.
Yeah.
He's a little bit to the right side, meaning that that entrance to the green will be more challenging. If you're in the center of the fairway, the approach into the green has almost no obstacles until the very end, so you get most of your distance no matter what.
Oh, an unfortunate little branch from there, but
Maybe cutting some distance off of Scott's disc, but still leaving him in a good position.
yeah, exactly. Watch Casey round out the card on hole 17. Keep this one nice and low.
A little bit left, but as long as, yeah, he'll have the gap between those two trees.
Yeah.
Should be no drama for any of these guys, as long as the two that were on the right have looks that they can shape up. And yeah, I may have spoke too soon. No, Carter fully out of those trees.
Yeah, just the camera work playing tricks on you.
And another overhand.
Overhand. Giving himself a good chance, but maybe a little bit longer of a putt than he would have liked.
Yeah, he'd like to be closer, but, you know, no bogey potential there. Just a tough putt.
Watch Casey catching a little bit of branch on this one as well. But
that rolls towards the basket. He'll be in great shape.
Can that one look good? Turning our cameraman around. Shout out to Sean on Catch Cam. Been coming to a lot of our tournaments and running Catch Cam for us. So we watch overhand from Scott.
No, you're gonna roll OB right?
And you just heard it from Scott. It's gonna roll OB to the right.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate one. You don't really expect when the thumber hits that hard that you'll get the roll every time. Kirby with a beautiful turnover here.
I think you have a backdoor 25-footer?
Yeah, as long as he can get around the last tree there,
Yeah.
he's got a great opportunity.
Here's Scott and Casey. Briefly, Sean, the catch cam guy, trying to decide where Scott went out. This is his look. It's not ideal.
But it is a look.
It is a look.
Yeah. Oh,
Takes a little stepper and just puts it off the band.
that's a few for Scott that have been high.
Yeah, it seems like Scott's just not quite firing on all cylinders, just making a few mistakes here and there, and fortunate to not get those breaks.
Wow, great putt from Carter.
Really good putt from Carter. We saw his putting kind of take a little bit of a dip, but in the last couple holes has looked pretty solid again.
Yeah, absolutely. That one, like nose down, diving into the chains, no doubt about it.
Kirby with a tricky little bush in his way, but fortunately putting this one off the band.
Maybe all you can do with the bush there. See if Scott can shake it off, and yes, he can.
Is that in for his bogey?
He's mad, and honestly, a bogey on this hole, based on the however many times he's played it and practiced it, is definitely not to his usual standard. But it does lock him and Carter up again in their battle. Going into the final hole.
We watch Casey put in his birdie, and that should get him the jump on Kirby.
Yeah. Kirby puts his in now, and that breaks the tie at the top. Casey going into the final hole with a lead. And look at this, the finger work that Kirby does when he throws. He actually goes from having his pointer finger on the rim like you'd hold a putter, mid-swing adjusting that into a power grip.
Yeah, you hear a lot about people's footwork on the tee pep and not a lot about their finger work, so
Absolutely.
nice work from Kirby there. Hole 18, par 3, 324 feet. This is the final hole that we'll see here at Raptors Knoll for this tournament. It's a great one. It's a good finishing hole. Most people, especially these guys, will just put a stock forehand hyzer up.
Absolutely. The danger to those sidearms can be a little bit too high and inside, puts you towards the rock and trees on our right side here, making the putt a bit dangerous, or swinging it out wide past the fence on the left. There is an OB line just down the hill from the fence, and discs that go over there typically don't stay in bounds.
And just as we said that on the forehand, we watched Carter go with the backhand here.
Yeah, this is outside, but it seems to be holding the whole way. Yes, that is a beautifully thrown shot by Carter.
Yeah, and because it's the backhand, he gets that nice, the spin of the disc causes that to spin even more inside circle. So got an easy putt there.
Casey going to his A3. It deals with most of his sidearms that aren't driver distance, and he throws that one very well.
Yeah, that's a great shot from Casey. That is more of the play that you typically see here. But we will see Kirby also opting for the backhand, not known for his forehand play.
This one's leaking a bit left, but pretty good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Not sure where it landed behind that bush. There is a bit of a pit there with some high rocks, and if you land in there, you're still very close, but it's very difficult to get up and over those rocks for a clean putt.
See how Scott can finish out this somewhat frustrating round for him. He puts this one in real nice.
Do you know what disc that would be in the Clash lineup? Because
I
there
am
is
not
a
sure.
very overstable mid-range that they have. Is it the Berry, maybe?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I'm not sure. Ask Scott, because he's always had his name on an overstable approach disc.
Yeah.
And that is definitely fits the mold. Or wait, the mold fits the series, because
There you go.
Frisbees.
As we just watched Casey put in his birdie, that's -11 on the day. That's a great round from Casey out here. As we move to Scott putting in his birdie as well. Off some nice drives. You just watched Kirby, the camaraderie in the foreground.
Yeah, these guys are all great competitors, but they're all very respectful, good people to play a round of disc golf with. Probably couldn't ask for a better group. Well, unless you and I were on it, but
Yeah, that's true.
who knows?
I wouldn't be able to keep up with these guys, that's for sure. That's going to do it for round 2. So we watched the sunset on Casey Hanemayer here, and yeah, great round from him. But -11 isn't the hot round, as we watch Chris Neslin put down a -12.
Yes, and don't forget Nick Culver, yeah, as well. Also throwing the 12 down and not even staying on the leaderboard with his 12 down. What a group of players we have here in the top 10.
Yeah, that'll be a great final card here. And it's so tight at the top, only 2 strokes separating Kirby and Casey, and don't count Scott out either.
Absolutely. As we've said time and time again, he is a multi-time BC Open champion, and I'm sure he's going to make a big push when we move over to the Campbell Valley course for tomorrow.
Yeah, so come out, watch round 3. That's coming right your way.
See ya.